Bé, finalment, bon dia, buenos días.
Well, good morning.
On this really sunny day. Not always like this in the Godot this year, you know. Benvinguts, bienvenidos, and welcome to Play for the Planet. You know, a top conference on sustainability led by the tennis club Barcelona in the Barcelona Open Banc Sabadell, 69th Trofeu Comte de Godó. Thanks for coming, everybody who is physically here in Barcelona, and thanks for attending, everybody who's connected around the world, because this event is broadcasted live in all ATP, the Professional Tennis Association around the world, in all the clubs, through their LinkedIn channel, also in the YouTube platform, and also in the internet site of our media partner, La Vanguardia. Well, I will switch sometimes the language because there's people of our three different main languages of the tournament. Estem super contents, no?
So we're so happy. I mean, it's sunny after all, right? We have this amazing sunny day, but it couldn't be otherwise, right? Because you know what day it is, right? It's the 22nd of April, 2022. This is a very important day. This is the Earth Day. It's not just any day. Earth Day is really important because it started in 1970 with great demonstrations in Chicago and Oklahoma. People would start claiming for development to take into account the care for the planet. And they would claim for more and more things every year. And then in 1990, it was considered to be the most significant sustainability event related to development. It was adopted officially by the UN. It was included in the SDGs. And now it's one of the greatest global events. So it's been official since 1990. They started with it in 1970. And I'm here today to lead this event. We will be here for around 2 hours, and we will try to stick to the agenda because the President has a very significant event afterwards as well. And I have the honor to conduct this. Some of you might know me. I'm really excited, but I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Albert Bosch, and you know, definitions are weird, but they say I'm an adventurous entrepreneur, expert in leadership, and disseminator, or I like to drive sustainability in different facets. But I'm here because I'm also a member of this great club. I'm a member of the Sustainability Commission since the beginning, actually. They have not kicked me out yet. And also because, amongst other adventures, I climbed the Everest. I'm not just saying that to show off, but because that was a tipping point for me. Everyone has these tipping points, and it's important to have them. In May 17th, 2010, more or less at this time of the day, I was on the top of the world, and I was really happy, really excited, because I had accomplished this goal. And you know, athletes want to meet their goals. We are ambitious with our projects, but also because I was flooded with responsibility. Why? Well, because it was not just a symbol, but literally the Earth, the planet, was at my feet, literally. So it was a really strong situation, and I had been doing this seven summit project, climbing the main, the tallest mountain in every continent, and my development turned into action. And because conscience is great, but you have to turn it into action at some point. And on top of the Everest, I promised myself while I was going down that I would never do anything again against the planet, because sometimes we did things directly against the planet. So I promised myself that I would try for my actions to be at least neutral and, if possible, positive. So I had to give up some things, but not my passion or sports or making a life. I just thought I would need to consider always a positive impact, even when looking for sponsors. You need to find committed sponsors, because otherwise it's not going to change anything. And that's what I did. Because, of course, you cannot, come down from the Everest and change the world, because the lack of oxygen sometimes triggers many things. But you see, you can't change everything. We can change one thing at a time, and particularly in your day-to-day life. And at the end of the day, we are here to ask ourselves this. We all have to ask ourselves this before every decision. Where do we want to be? On the side of the problem or on the side of the solution? It's very simple, but where do we want to be? Do we want to conduct good business and enjoy our passions and sport and a good, comfortable life, but not taking into account our footprint, our impact? I don't care. Or do we want to make good business and enjoy our passions and practice sport, live a good life, but connected with the impact we have on the planet? Well, I believe that if you're here today on this 22nd of April, is because you are on the latter, on the second group. Play for the Planet stands for this. Stands for us playing for the planet. And this is the spirit that has always been instilled in this club and in this Conte de Godó tournament. And this is why we have these great speakers today representing these very powerful organizations. And these organizations are already applying this. They're already following this book. It's not brainwashing, it's not nice words, it's action. This is what sustainability is about. It's not a fad, it's action, and you're representing this drive here. We're being seen by all of the ATP. This is one of the most powerful and advanced tournaments in this regard, and I'm proud to have you here. You're so generous, you're having a positive impact, and we're going to officially start and open this event. So now I will invite the CEO of Barcelona Open Banc Sabadell and the 69th tournament Conte de Godó, Mr. Xavier Pujol, to welcome all of us here. So, Xavier.
Buenos días a todos. Yo la verdad que venía hoy con un gripazo.
Good morning, everyone. I was actually having this bad flu for a couple of days with humidity and the cold night in Barcelona, but after listening to Albert and after seeing the agenda, I'm just going to give it all in this presentation. And I want to thank all of you, all of the participants in Barcelona and elsewhere, because we're really excited to have you here, to have these participants in this event. It's so important for us, so the attendance to today's event and so many people following us online. This means there is an awareness in society that we need to protect the planet, and that's the most significant part, because it starts with awareness. Secondly, the effort to carbon neutrality is an effort of all, and it comes with a responsibility and a commitment of society as a whole. And it is a moral issue as well, because we have a responsibility of taking care of the planet and also passing it on to the next generation the best possible conditions, or at least the same or better than we got it. Also, our leadership position in ATP, since we are one of the oldest tournaments with the longer tradition, also comes with a responsibility to lead this transition to neutrality. And the Club Tennis Barcelona and our tournament is one of the ones that have started more activities in the last few years in terms of energy efficiency, and we are proud today to lead this event, which I know that with all the speakers we have here today, we are going to also send out this awareness to this neutrality that is responsible, not just speaking for the sake of it, but with measurable actions towards a common goal, which is carbon neutrality by 2040, as the UN says. So thank you very much for attending, and we can open the session.
Pues gracias, señor Pujol.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pujol. We are so proud to have this very committed event here.
We move to London because we have to say hello. We will have online Mr. Mark Eaps. Are you there, Mark?
I'm here.
Hello, how are you? Mr. Mark Eaps is the Senior Manager for Communications in the ATP, the Professional Tennis Association. And well, he will talk us about introducing how the ATP serves sustainability, you know. Well, Mark, I hope you are there. I don't know if it's raining up there in London, but I promise you, here in Barcelona yesterday, it was worse than Wimbledon, you know. Worse than Wimbledon in the last 4 years. We couldn't play any single match, I think. Only 2. Are you okay? Can you listen to me? Yes. Okay. Well, Mark.
I can hear you. It's a little bit delayed, but I think we're good.
Okay. So, well, now I pass you the control of the microphone and the screen. And, well, it's all for you. I just would like to know, in general, we all would like to know how ATP decided to make environmental sustainability one of its key priorities now and looking forward.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. You know, it's quite simple. You spoke in your opening comments a lot about responsibility. We feel a really strong responsibility as a global organization. And one of the key drivers, I think, is that, well, firstly, we're a global sport, right? And just by the nature of the game, we are probably more exposed than any other sport to the climate. We play 11 months of the year. We play in 30 plus countries. We play mainly outdoors. And just in the last 10 years, you know, we've experienced the effects of bushfires, heat waves, floods, rain disruption like you had in Barcelona yesterday. So our game really depends on the environment, and we have a responsibility to safeguard it and to take care of it and to take action. And I would say the other key driver for us has really been our community. You know, when you ask fans, particularly younger fans, you know, what's the issue that you most deeply care about? You know, so consistently, the environment is top of their agenda. So we have our fans who are calling for us to take action and to use our platform. We also have players who are super ambitious and outspoken in this space. We have our events who are doing amazing things in the sustainability space as well. And increasingly also we have our partners. I think the conversation is really changing. One of the first things that our commercial partners ask us is, what are you doing in sustainability? How can we get involved? We want to help you. We want to support. So there's this amazing groundswell of momentum, I think, in sport to do more. And, you know, 2 years ago, really think what our purpose is as really fascinating as we look at, you know, some bodies in the way. You think of all of these share a very clear purpose, a very clear on what they are there to do. And for us, our purpose is to inspire on the court and to serve beyond it. So let me unpack that for a second. You know, inspiring on the court, I think, is something we do very well. You know, we have amazing athletes who do incredible things all around the world, 11 months of the year. And what they do inspires millions of fans, you know, to dream big, be ambitious, pick up a racket, get active. But for us, you know, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than just the sport. It's about serving outside of the court, serving our fans, serving our community, and leaving the planet better than we found it. So this process for us started about 2 years ago. We created a new brand called ATP Serves. ATP Serves is the umbrella brand for all of our purpose-led initiatives. And what we wanted to do through this was to create a very authentic and a very focused program that delivers maximum impact. So the three focuses for us, the first is our organizational culture. So this talks to things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this makes a lot of sense because we're global. We have players, tournaments, fans from all over the world. Makes a lot of sense. Mental health. Many of you will have seen that this is a topic that our players have spoken about a lot in the last 12 months. Again, tennis is a lonely, tough sport, and I think it's an area that we can speak very authentically to. And then on the sustainability side, the reason that we're all here today, we know that we as a tour, just by the nature of our business, we are a contributor to this problem. We put on events all over the world which use resources, energy, create waste, and we fly a lot. We're traveling 11 months of the year all over the world. So again, we felt that we have a really, really strong responsibility to take action in this space. So what are we going to focus on? Sustainability is a really, really broad topic. The UN has, of course, the 17 Sustainability Development Goals. And we knew that if we were going to be successful in changing behaviors across the tour, we have to be. And the two is under our sustainability bar. One, resource consumption, so consumption of energy, water, materials. And then secondly, it's about climate action. I mentioned the flying before, but we want to track, reduce, and credibly offset our costs. So we have great, buy from the top organization. We're really lucky that our Andrea and our CEO Massimo are in supportive of the ATP Serve's goals and agenda. And we felt before we launched our strategy in November, we wanted to have a very clear vision of where we're going to, which is where UN Sports for Climate Action comes. So we joined this in November. It was a bit of a scary step, I'm not going to lie. The UN have the two goals, of course, 50% reduction in emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2040. And we're really proud to be a member of this initiative because it sets that clear vision. It gives us the credibility, of course, of working with the UN. It gives us amazing access to resources and some of the best thinking within sports. And it's a really clear statement of our intentions. So we launched this in November. And this is a quick overview of how we see our ecosystem. Within the green circle in the middle are the areas that we directly control as the tour. So this includes our operations, and it also includes our two year-end events in Milan and Turin. And then what you see on the outside is everything that we influence, but that we don't directly control. So you've got things like our fans, you've got our players, and then, of course, you've got our 60 events all across the world. So what this shows you, I think, is a little bit the challenge that we face as the governing body. We sit atop the tour, but actually our sphere of control is quite limited. And so as we were going through this process, we realized just how strongly we require a team effort across the tour. So it's amazing to see the Barcelona event step up and be so proactive. We really need everybody pulling together. So that's really, really encouraging to see. So, okay, what's our plan? How are we going to, tangibly address these issues? So we're going to take a three-phase approach. So phase one for us is about leading by example. This is super important because you can't talk a big game if you're not taking action yourself. We want to be the benchmark on the tour for everybody to follow. And so we've got a really comprehensive tranche of initiatives across our operations. So this looks at things like our flying, our 4 offices, and then at our year-end events. So to give you an example, in 2019, the NITO ATP Finals, it was in London at the time, that event became carbon neutral. So we tracked and offset all of the travel from our fans, our players, our staff. It was the first time we did it, and it really showed us how much we can achieve and also how influential that event is. I think they got a lot of pickup within the tennis community more broadly. So phase one is about leading by example, setting the benchmark. And then phase two, as I mentioned before, is about tapping into that wider ecosystem. We can't do it alone, right? So we have our tournaments and we have our players. And on the tournament side, we've developed a really robust toolkit, which was released to our tournaments earlier this year. We've had multiple workshops as well, giving them the tools to set goals, plan their approach, be ambitious, and then track data. And on the player side, we've built a tool that allows our players to track all of their travel across the year. And then what we do at the end of the season, we give that data to our consultants. They crunch it. They give the players a number. And then through that, the players can offset all of their travel and become carbon neutral for the year, which is really exciting. And then the last stage is about using our platform. We realize that this is one of our strengths. We have, tennis itself has 1 billion fans around the world. We speak to hundreds of millions of fans every year. And it's about using that platform to advocate for change. So one of the ways we can do that is about communicating, and we've really stepped up our sort of consistent communications around ATP serves. And the second bucket is about partnerships. We've launched a number of really exciting partnerships in the last 12 months. We've partnered with the Gold Standard, the UN, of course, and then across ATP serves in the mental health and the DEI space, we have another couple of partnerships. So that's broadly speaking our approach. We're also lucky to have worked with a fantastic team of consultants based out of the UK. Kate and Amanda have worked with major events, big brands, and Jonathan Smith has worked with the PGA and the European Tour. He knows everything about sustainability in golf. So all in all, we're really excited to be on this journey. We know that it's a long-term journey. We've got great buy-in, we've got great support. There's a lot of support from within the organization. And of course, it's fantastic to be speaking at an event like Play for the Planet on Earth Day. I think it shows that the ambition that we have across our ecosystem. And it's a pleasure to talk to you all and thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you for staying the time because I couldn't control you from here. You are top. Y realmente es
I was watching the clock.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Realmente es muy importante. Podéis, lo que estáis aquí, sabéis lo que es la ATP.
So it's so important, yes. I mean, you know what ATP is. World level, this high impact organization, one of the main sports organizations in the world. Having as one of its priorities a commitment to protect the environment means that we're doing something well. There are many projects, but we can be positive about this. So we're moving on to the next speaker. I will introduce him. It's not following the order of importance because he has this very long career, but I will start by what was more of an impact for me. He's one of my main opponents on the court when we play. Then we, have laughs after that, but he's really tough on me. Secondly, he's a very valuable member of the club and also a member of the Sustainability Commission from the beginning. But most of all, he's an emeritus professor of the Polytechnic University of Catalonia with many specialties, very well known in the field of the environment and climate change. He's on the media all the time. But I would highlight one thing. He's got this diploma by IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. He has this special diploma for his contribution to the Peace Nobel Prize. So we're happy to have José María Baldassano here. He will tell us about something really short, the why.
Muchas gracias por las flores.
Well, thank you so much for the compliment. And I will be quick because we don't have so much time. And if you could start the video for me. This is a very short video by the World Organization on Meteorology, one of the branches of the UN, and the last report on the climate change, with the current climate change, because we've had many climate changes, but the one we're experiencing now. You gave me the slide, but it looks like we can't play it, but I had this prepared, but I will say it myself. Anyways, at this point, there was actually a story on La Vanguardia newspaper on the Copernicus report. Copernicus is the organization in the European Union to follow the air quality and the current climate change. And there was this report published today saying that worldwide, the thermal worldwide anomaly is 1.2. The goal is 1.5, so it's now 2.2 in Europe. Same thing more or less in the Mediterranean. In the Arctic, it's over 3 degrees of thermal anomaly. Of all the CO2 injected into the atmosphere, at this point in time, we are at the final peak of the winter and already over 421 parts per million of concentration. The average is already 415. When we started working on this at the end of the 50s, we were measuring 359 parts per million. So we really unleashed and hinged here. So when we realized we had these values of 359, we didn't know that for the last 800,000 years, the threshold had been 190. So we were far beyond this threshold. And in spite of the climate crises and the pandemic and everything, this goes up, the anomaly goes up, and this is leaving us to this bad situation. And before I forget, out of all these gigatons of greenhouse gases we were injected into the atmosphere, actually only 60% is in the atmosphere. 40% is in the forest and woods. They have increased their productivity, especially in northern latitudes and in the oceans. So otherwise, the concentration of CO2 would be higher. So if you can move on to the next slide. This is actually an animated map of where CO2 is being injected and accumulated. So most of the land is on the northern hemisphere, and this is why the Arctic area is much hotter. There's also a very significant fact, which is that the climate system doesn't play by a rule of 3, which is what we normally apply. This is a very complex system that basically responds in an exponential manner, and it does so with feedback processes. So that processes go up or down, and most of the effects of the current climate change are actually promoting these effects, which means that the classic denial comment saying that no, but it's cold now. It's because the flow current around the Arctic, it's relaxing now, and it used to have smooth oscillations in the past, but now the oscillations are much stronger, which means that at some point we get these cold air masses from the Arctic, and then after 1 week we get a subtropical mass of hot air. And these oscillations called heat disorient people, and there is a proven scientific reason for that. It is because of a relaxation of this jet current, which cause these changes in the subnatic movements of the atmosphere of the Earth. Well, this one's working. No problem. I just wanted to make you see, because greenhouse gases are colorless, so we can't see them, but this is what's going on in the atmosphere. Another important detail is that you can see the magnitude of the change in the last centuries, in the last 70 or 80 years, in the last 270 years actually, if we got all of the greenhouse gases we have injected over this time, it's like we had covered the Earth with a 70-centimeter thick layer of solid material. Just to give you a physical example, physical visualization of the change we are bringing about. This is what's going on globally every day in the atmosphere. The air quality is at a local level, at a regional level. I mean, they are interrelated, but they are completely different and independent phenomena. So why is it so important to cut down on emissions? A molecule of CO2, given that we are in an oxygenated atmosphere, this CO2 molecule will stay in the atmosphere for 1,000 years. So a greenhouse gas injection today will provoke global warming for 1,000 years. Methane only stays for 10 years because it is a reduced compound, and nitrogen, because it is oxidated, it will oxidate even more, so will stay for 110 years more or less. This is why it is important to cut down on all emissions, but most importantly on CO2, because we are now, injecting the CO2 for 1,000 years. So the cut on the emissions is not just thinking about the present, but thinking about the mid and very long term. So the sooner we cut down the emissions, the less intense the process will be, and the less serious consequences will be. This is why it is so necessary to cut down on emissions. How much time is left? Well, the carbon balance calculations say that we have injected 2,475 gigatons of CO2, and to meet the goal from the 2015 Paris Agreement, we can inject 420 more. We don't have more leeway. That's what we have. If the goal was different, maybe it could be more, but with this 1.5-degree increase anomaly, then that's what we have left. And a company like PricewaterhouseCoopers is saying that, well, they have this, they calculate their estimations every year, and they say that if we do not make decisions now, the requirements to meet the goal will be increasingly important every year. The last report from 2021 tells us that if we want to meet this 1.5-degree goal, we have to reduce almost 8% our emissions every year, and it was 5.2 in Kyoto. So this is a really big wager, and every year it gets more serious, because the last generation, 90 to 2020, have done almost nothing. We have kept on increasing the problem. We just let time pass. And this is a global phenomenon which is increasingly urgent. And in Catalonia, this also has an impact on us. This was a simulation made at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. There is a period for the preparation of the simulation, but the black line is the evolution of temperature versus the forecast. And unfortunately, we are getting it right. I'm happy with the simulation, but not with the consequences of the simulation. And at the level of rainfall, same thing, because we're going to have less rainfall, but more violently in less days, concentrated in less days. So we can't say we are going to organize plans for infrastructure. We already have infrastructure adaptation problems in Catalonia. For instance, the R1 train line is seriously a danger. The Ebro Delta is also in danger. We're going to have droughts and floods, and the financial consequences of not acting are more costly than acting. According to the World Bank, we could have over 200 million of climate-related migrants. We have 5 million because of the unfortunate war in Ukraine, so we know what it represents. So the message of ATP has been clear. It's really positive and important because this affects all human activities, and as a consequence, the current change forces us to put an end to the fossil fuel civilization, because this is an emergency. It's not something that will come. We already have it here. So any human activity needs to look at sustainability. Thank you very much.
Gracias, profesor.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Emeritus, thank you. It's a pleasure to listen to you. Well, not very good vibes, right? Just imagine. Let's say I'm not Albert Bosch. Let's say I'm Carlos Alcaraz. Do you know him? I do look like him, don't I? Let's say I am playing in a tournament, just about to play against Rafa Nadal. You know him, right? You know, he's a guy that plays tennis, you know? And I'm just about to play against him, but then my coach comes, my own coach, Carlos, and he says, you know this guy? He's won the most tournaments in ATP. He serves at 217 kilometers an hour. He has an index for first serves of 78%. He is the guy the most sets against he's gained from. And Carlos says, oh gosh, that's really a bad vibe. I'll go to the hospital and sign some autographs. You can't win games like that. You need to know the information. You need to know what bad news is coming. Because if you have a challenge, if you want to overcome that challenge, you need data. You need to know the truth. So it's not about bad news or bad vibes. It's about being realistic, about being ready. And this is what Jose Maria explained to us with data and in a friendly manner. And now we have a key person. I would kindly ask Mr. Joan Ramon Riera Alemany to join me. He is the councillor for the district of Les Corts, because the partnership between Open Banc, Barcelona, Banc Sabadell, Torneo Comte de Godó with this district is very important, because we require a global vision of things, and then we need to act locally. And the commitment in this district, not just with the tennis club, with FC Barcelona and other stakeholders, is key. We need to be connected to do things well, as Mr. Pujol mentioned earlier, the CEO of this tournament. So he will talk to us about the commitment of this district, Les Corts, towards inclusion, what they called the TSR, Socially Responsible Territory. Thank you. The floor is yours. Welcome. It may be by chance or not, but I prepared some notes over the last 10 minutes in a notebook that says people, progress, planet, Barcelona. There you go. It is. I think that the commitment is clear. The commitment of the city towards sustainability and sustainable progress. And from this point of view, my intervention will revolve around a first general consideration, and then I will see what kind of contribution can be made from the district. You know that the city of Barcelona is governed from 10 different districts, one of which is the district of Les Corts, the one in which the Royal Tennis Club of Barcelona is in. And one of the things that we do is to establish relations with the civil society present in this district, and we try to build common and joint strategies. In this respect, for starters, I would say that talking about sustainability in cities is talking about equity. There is nothing less sustainable and more polluting than poverty and exclusion. In a key of poverty, as we are seeing in many corners of the world, we cannot talk, or people do not talk about sustainability. In the social field, we need to address this topic. Therefore, from this district, we need to make an effort based on proximity to focus on inclusion, so that later other bodies, other governments, other entities in a city, in a region, in a state, in the EU, or even at UN level, they should deploy and develop the great sustainability policy. But seen from a district, sustainability policies are also policies of inclusion. And when speaking of sustainability policies in large cities, there is a concept which is that of the circular economy. The circular economy, and let me just stop for a second, because I would like to highlight that there is no theoretical consensus about what the circular economy is or should be. I mean, there may be a first package in the academia who would defend some thesis on city growth, on ruralization of cities even, that is, of bringing nature back to the city. And then there are other authors who favor the generation of value in the circular economy, turning it into a new value chain that provides wealth to its citizens. This is the logic that lies behind our initiatives in the district of Las Corts. We are committed to this structure, a circular economy providing sustainability, giving a step forward in public-private cooperation. We don't want to pollute the city, and this is a challenge that we must turn into opportunity, value, generation of employment, welfare in human terms and in environmental terms too. Having said this, what is our role in the construction of this value chain? I'm not been using my pointer here, I'm afraid. So, what is it? Our work focuses primarily on the field of inclusion, and it has been demonstrated that in those societies with less inequality, there is more production. They are safer, more sustainable, and they have higher levels of welfare. And how do we work to achieve this inclusion? Well, first, we focus on projects. For instance, we have this metaphor of building synapses. This would be one of them. Between the district of Las Corts, the City Council of Barcelona, and the Royal Tennis Club, Trofeo Conde de Godó, altogether, we can establish cooperation in this regard. Cooperative work is formed by emphasizing and sharing work plans of all the social stakeholders in Las Corts. Not few, by the way, very powerful. Here we have civil organizations that are really important. Another element to be considered and that we can contribute is a comprehensive vision, taking all groups into consideration and all sources of inequality too. And lastly, by contributing with our work from propinquity, with an approach of innovation. Based on this approach, many actions are promoted, coordinated, or supported by us. For instance, there's an example in which this Trofeo de Conte de Godó takes part, which is the recruitment of people with a disability within or during the celebration of the tournament. Or, for example, the fair of entities that work in the healthcare sector, or the recruitment of people at risk by the Festival of Pedralbes that is hosted every summer in this district, or the project to develop, which is underway by the way, to develop inclusive radio, local radio in the district of Las Corts with an inclusive character, or the Radars project. For those of you who do not know it, this is a project that works to battle or to fight against loneliness. We have a problem in Western societies. Many of us, whether it's because of our culture or not, tend to exclude people, to leave people alone, aside. Every year, the firefighters service organizes activities. For instance, finding the remains of people who died alone at home. We need to find remedy to this issue. And we must build a public policy that can re-socialize our community. And lastly, another example, a recent one. I can see Mr. Portabella here. So I'm referring to the solidarity campaign to gather first need material by the Barca Foundation, along with the Consulate of Ukraine. And by the way, the Consulate of the Ukraine are also here in this district, and we cooperate together. So by being close to people, we can make significant, coordinated initiatives to work towards inclusion, also on a global level. And to conclude, I'll have time to spare, you see. Along the lines of the circular economy, as I was saying, there's a Professor Edward Glesser from Harvard, a theoretician, who defines that the good functioning of a city is not measured by the level of wealth. It is not measured by the number of population below the poverty threshold, but because of their capacity to abandon poverty, because of their capacity to generate social elevators. On a macroeconomic level, we talk about redistribution, about the social elevator, the capacity of countries to generate or to promote this social elevator. But this elevator is somewhere. It is in cities. It is in Barcelona. It is in Les Corts. And this elevator, this lift, is the one we must use to promote this construction of this sustainable society, this value chain that will allow us to extend the life expectancy of the planet and of its people. That is all. Thank you very much. And by the way, I did not use my PowerPoint presentation a lot, but I would like to refer to one thing. Here, when we spoke about cooperation, we can see some examples of what the role is of the district, of people with disabilities, and I imagine this PowerPoint will be posted online and will be available to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joan Ramon. Well, we gained 1 minute. That's great. Thank you. Well, in the end, it was 50 seconds. And congratulations anyway. I think it is crystal clear. I think that this synapsis and comprehensive vision is key. Sport is an amazing vehicle we can use to this end. And we've demonstrated this. We have private companies, civil society, influencers, athletes, idols, administration. All of us must work together. This is true teamwork for the planet. Now, let's move on to the next speaker. I am really excited to present her to you because she is representing another of the key public authorities in general, specifically in this event. She is the director of the Climate Change Office and Sustainability Office of Barcelona. In addition, and I must say so, I agree with her in the fact that, or with the City Council in the organization of the marathon. This is the first race, the 100% nature solidarity race. We work in favor of nature. Sport and sustainability go hand in hand. Thank you for promoting this from the City Council. I'm referring to Irma Bantañol, our next speaker. She said something to me. She said, you need to take part in our initiatives, and I've played a great deal of sport, but I'm terrible. I love your logo, though. Save the planet. Thank you, Irma. Floor is yours. Thank you, Albert. Well, I'm the only woman who will be speaking to you today. Albert says I play sports. Well, I don't. I tried to play, but I didn't do it very well. I tried ballet, artistic skating, basketball, paddle. I'm an absolute disaster in all sports that I've practiced, but I keep trying it. And I'll give my presentation in Catalan, so I will be different to my previous speakers. First of all, I would like to thank the Open Banc Sabadell Trofeig Comte de Godó for inviting us, the City Council, in this session, important session. And I'm here to tell you what the role of the city is in the fight against climate change. I would try to focus on the action, which is what Albert was asking from us in his initial intervention. First, I would like to refer to the current international context. Josep Maria Baldassano already explained what the international context is. Recently, or not so recently, in November, we were able to attend the COP in Glasgow, where we strengthened the goal of 1.5 degrees set in Paris. It was said between 1.5 and 2 degrees, right? We need to try to make sure that the global average temperature of the Earth does not go further, because if we go to 3 degrees, it could be catastrophic, it is said. This is what the IPCC says. What was great about the COP26 is that we were able to specify in numbers what this meant, in agreement with the IPCC, which is to reduce 45% the greenhouse emissions in 2030 with respect to 2010. This is a lot, and we all need to start working on it from our own areas of expertise. Several things happened in the COP. It was a very mediatic. Minister Tuvalu gave a speech from the water to signify why this 1.5 degrees are important, because if we exceed it, some islands in the world or island countries will disappear from the map. It was also a COP that generated a lot of expectations, maybe not attained. This is also important. COP generate many expectations, but agreeing 168 or 69 countries is really difficult. The good thing about the COP is that some parallel agreements started to be signed, such as that between the US and China, another one about deforestation signed by many countries. So progress was made, but not at the pace desired or needed. Also mentioned by José María Baldassano at the beginning, there's been a new report published by the IPCC, 3 chapters, 3,000 pages each. You know, we scientists need to work to see how we can make this information more manageable. And what they say is that there are many changes that are irreversible. They also say that there will be no physical environmental impediments to maintain warming below 2 degrees, limiting it to 1.5. There is hope. There are no physical impediments to prevent this from happening, but we do need political will, economic will, social will. And they also say that these reductions must be fast and profound in all sectors, and greenhouse gas emissions worldwide should start to decrease after 2025 because we are growing, and we need to start to decrease now, immediately, reducing by 45% in 2030. In the latest report of the IPCC on mitigation, they also refer to the role of cities, the role that cities play, because we cities concentrate the vast majority of the population. We generate 70% of emissions, and we're very close to the place where we can do things because of the resources that we have. We would love to have more, obviously, but we can only do as much, but they are a key player to be able to act. What have we done in Barcelona? What we have done in Barcelona is to see how climate change will affect us. We've been working with the Climate Service of Catalonia, and depending on these forecasts and scenarios set by the IPCC, in the best scenario, which would be meeting the targets of Paris, in 2100 Barcelona, temperature would increase 1.5 degrees. And in the worst case scenario, if we don't do anything business as usual, the increase in temperature would be 3 degrees, which is a lot for Barcelona. In addition to the the reduction of rainfall, between 14% and 26% less rainfall, depending on the different scenarios. We have also analyzed what this means when it comes to the increase in heat. Earlier, Josep Maria said that worldwide we are at 1.1 in temperature increase. In Barcelona, it's 1.8 since 1970. 1.8 degrees is a lot, in addition to what is to come. And we can see that the heat waves are increasing. Actually, these heat waves can increase times 8 or times 16, depending on the scenarios, and to be longer. Just imagine from July to September at temperatures above 30 degrees. One thing is to spend 4 days in the summer like that. A different story is to spend the whole summer like that. So we need to adapt. We have also studied the effect of rainfall. This is something that we've already seen. Less water throughout the year, but with more intense rainfall and more frequent episodes. We've also detected extreme climate events. These are just examples of what we are witnessing. For instance, the beaches in Barcelona are affected and they're at risk of sea storms, such as with Gloria. This is a picture of that episode with Gloria. So what are we doing in Barcelona? What are our goals? Since 1990, we started working to reduce energy, to improve energy efficiency, with measures to reduce consumption, and with strategic climate planning. The latest plan is the 2018 plan. It was updated in 2020 with the declaration of climate emergency, and we set very important goals when it comes to mitigation, adaptation, climate justice, as the Council of Los Corts said. It is also important to face the climate emergency, and finally, climate and citizen action. These ambitious goals are to reduce emissions in 50% since 1992 until 2030, and carbon neutral until 2050. We want to increase 1 square meter per inhabitant in green areas in the city. So we need to include greenery in facades, roofs, wherever we can, and create whatever parts we can whenever the opportunity arises. When it comes to climate justice, right now there is 24% of energy poverty in the city. With COVID and the crisis of materials and energy will be worse. The goal here is zero energy poverty. We also aim to achieve 100% clean finance. We want to work with banks that we know have important and good environmental behavior, and we want to provide subsidies to entities and organizations in the city that want to tackle this climate emergency too. In this screen, you can see the results, how things are going with respect to the goals. In terms of emissions, we are aligned, we are on the right track, but there's a trick here. These are data from 2020, and in 2020 we were able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20% because of COVID. Just imagine what this means, and this is what we should do every year, 20% reduction in emissions approximately. Just imagine the effort it requires to be able to reach these levels of CO2 decrease. The challenge is significant. With respect to the water, the problem is that we have a very ambitious goal, moving from 107 liters per inhabitant day to 70. It's very difficult to reach this goal. When it comes to the increase in greenery, we're also on the right track, so on and so forth. I won't extend too much because I would like to explain, with the 2 minutes I have left, some of the actions that we've carried out in 2020 to face the climate emergency. In the economic and emission status, we created Barcelona Energia, an energy marketing company. In 2020, we were able to save more than 13,000 CO2 tons. It's not bad, but not enough. We've been also promoting renewable energy. We fostered district heating, hot and cold, a system for distributing heating and air conditioning in a more efficient manner, saving 25,000 of CO2 tons. Other things, the low emission area, important because of the quality of air and for the reduction of CO2 emissions. Because in the end, we're talking about the burning of fossil fuel. If the vehicles are newer, more efficient, then we can generate less emissions. Another important line of action is the energy rehabilitation of buildings. In Barcelona, 20% of the emissions stem from dwellings where people live. And the housing market is rather old. So energy rehabilitation is very important to save energy and to safeguard the thermal comfort of families and people living there. Super islands. That's another model that allows us to recover the space in the city for nature, to include greenery, providing more fresh air. If we can use these areas for urban drainage of water, this would be a way of gaining space back from the city. We've also been working with schools to create climate refuges so that students can be more comfortable in and outside the classroom. Sometimes in June, they're at 30 degrees in the classroom. And also when it comes to water management, we created an alternative hydric resource plan, sanitation plan, that include these impacts on forecast of rainfall, lack of water, drought, that will help us in the future. And lastly, to conclude, we are giving 400,000 euros for citizen project addressing climate emergency so that organizations, and associations and research centers in Barcelona can continue doing their own projects. And I'll just leave it there. I would just like to say that there is a group of experts focusing on climate emergency that are advising us. It is formed by all the universities in the city with some experts of the IPCC, and we are happy to have this group of experts working with us. That would be all. Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much, Irma. It's clear we've got so many environmental challenges. We have to face them all, but maybe the most important one is the climate change challenge. I believe around 70% of the world population live in coastal cities, and of course the ones that are going to be most impacted are the ones on the seafront. Barcelona is on the coast, is on the seafront. Marrakech is not, but we should try and be more like Marrakech and do more things. Thank you for the presentation. And staying in the City Council, we're moving from the environmental area to the sports area, linking it back to this tennis tournament. We will hear from Carles Vallès. He works on sports events at the sports events organization at the City Council of Barcelona, and he will tell us about some practical examples of sports events they organize from the City Council of Barcelona. So I don't know if I've had to give my sports resume. I've run marathons and triathlons, but I'm most proud of having played sport with some people in the room. Also, some women like Irma, we've played paddle with her. So just keeping all the acknowledgement, because I would just repeat what Irma said from the City Council of Barcelona. The content of the session is basically about explaining the sustainable part of the marathon and half marathon of Barcelona. The City Council of Barcelona owns the brand Barcelona Marathon and Barcelona Half Marathon, and doesn't have the instruments needed to develop these contracts. So basically we hire this company specialized in organizing international sports events to develop this contract, always within the terms of a tender, of a public tender. Basically we want to eliminate some of the most striking pictures we've seen in these kind of sports events, which is all the waste that is thrown away on the streets. So what is the content of the contract and the clauses of this agreement in the tender? Well, you can see it in the scheme on the screen. The basic change is the design of an environmental plan. There has to be a person or group of people with skills in environmental science that can create a plan for the whole duration of the contract. This plan is based on these circles you can see here, and the backbone of the plan would be these actions here. We will start on the vertical axis with the regulations. Given the duration of the contract is quite long, environmental regulations of the EU, Spain or Catalonia or even the city of Barcelona may change. Therefore, it is mandatory for the contractor to be aware of these regulations and to adapt.
No, és la lupa. No. Ara, aquí. Hem fet les normatives i ara aniríem als indicadors.
So we've talked about the regulation. Now moving on to the environmental indicators. Of course, you need to have some goals and indicators that can give you some knowledge of your development, of your progression. The contractor has to present at the end of every edition of the Barcelona Marathon an environmental report with information on the evolution of such indicators, these key indicators. Another action by the contractor is to come up with a sustainable mobility plan. The main sponsor of the run of the race should be linked to sustainable mobility, and also the marketing team of the company has to try and close contract with brands of electric cars or electric bikes, so that all of the transportation made by the organization is done with zero impact vehicles. And I would like to seize this opportunity that we have Cupra here today, that we're looking for these kind of sponsors. We don't want to have thermal engine cars used in these sports events. Another necessary aspect for the development of the plan is to promote the use of public transportation. The contractor must have on its website some information on the public transportation that may be used by registered people, by registered athletes, using, again, public transportation. On the website, they have to detail the whole public transportation network, so that through an app you can find out what's the best public transportation option to go from the hotel or from where you live to the place where the race is held. Also, the contractor must have a relationship with electric motorbike companies, so that runners from the hotel or their accommodation can also go to the race starting point. Of course, runners in the morning will have maybe trouble using public transportation, because the marathon starts at 8 a.m. and sometimes some of the runners want to have breakfast, and at 7 a.m. they want to go to the starting point of the race. So electric bikes are a good vehicle to go to locker rooms and to all the services of the race. And then the contractor must also set up a free bike parking for anyone that might want to use the private bike to go to the starting point of the race. So, this environmental plan wants to mitigate the environmental impact of the race, but we are aware that this is impossible to do it fully. So we also introduce the need in the contract, the need to compensate from the perspective of the athletes first, because you have to bear in mind that the Barcelona Marathon, which has normally between 10,000 and 20,000 runners, has many people coming from abroad. They take planes to come here. We've seen the pictures of the sponges and the water bottles, but the main impact created by the Barcelona Marathon is related to the airlines coming to Barcelona, bringing runners in. So what we require from the contractor is that when a runner registers to the race, when they say where they are from, they can calculate what the compensation for their trip would be. Another obligation of the contractor is to estimate all of the emissions by the organization, meaning the company organizing the contract and all subcontractors. This is part of the environmental plan, and by the end of the race they have to make up for the tons of CO2 emitted. So environmental training, any environmental plan has no future if you do not make it known and public to the whole organization. So the contractor must communicate this to the whole organization in their company and subcontractors, as well as volunteers and all partner organizations, and they have to be trained in this environmental plan, because either everyone is rowing in the same direction or you can't have a functioning plan. Also, waste prevention and 3 Rs, one of the aspects we have to take into account is that the sound of the event is controlled by limiters, by sound limiters, and a study is performed so that the city inhabitants can go about their lives as usual. Also, when using electrogen batteries and packs to power the activities of the race, they should be using gases so that they do not have so much noise, they do not make so much noise. Also, when runners register in the race, they have to go to the runner trade fair to get their number and the gift. So the bag in which they get this should be also recycled. Many foreign runners, when they also leave their clothes in the locker room, they use this bag, and then when they go back to their countries, they also use it for the sneakers or for when they go shopping in the city. Also, the T-shirt for the run, for the race, should be made of recycled fibers. This was not a clause in the contract in the past, but it is now, and with all the events we try to make it like this. Also, the supply points during the race should be proximity fruit and zero plastic. So we try to use compostable cups, paper cups, so that everything can be recycled afterwards. And finally, time control. This is a very specific aspect of the Barcelona Marathon, because everything we've said so far could be applicable to any kind of sports event, but most marathons in the world use this kind of chip to control time, to keep track of time. It's not much, but it has an environmental impact. And then we have an alternative, which is the reusable chip. Same thing as with water glass bottles. We performed this study through a specialized company, and we estimated the impact for 5 years of this kind of chip with all the races in Barcelona, and the yellow chip has half the environmental impact of the other one, of the single-use chip, which is thrown away by runners. So in a race for just one race, it would be probably more expensive and more costly from an environmental perspective to use the yellow one. But if you consider all of the races that are organized every year, then it's much better to use the yellow one over time. And then communication plan using zero paper, and also we have to disseminate the environmental plan, because if all the stakeholders don't know about the plan, it will be difficult to drive it and to push it forward. So we have to run, but run with awareness. And by the way, in a contract, you can also get improvements by the proposed by the contractor. So there were two improvements suggested by the contractor in the last tender. First, with the isotonic drinks, they said that by the end of the contract, they would use a compound of plant-based fibers that need no cup, that just melt out in your mouth. And then they also said they would generate static advertising using LED screens so that there would not be PVC waste that would be thrown away after the race. That was my presentation. I had a video, but I will just skip it. This was actually the LED arc. Thank you.
Moltes gràcies, Carles. Buah, quin exemple, perquè...
Thank you very much, Carlos. That was quite the example, right? Because sometimes it looks like it's just go and run, but it's so complex to organize this kind of event. So if I were contractor for this kind of, if I was a bidder for that kind of tender, I would say, well, it's so difficult, right, to get this bid to organize the Barcelona Marathon. I mean, some years ago it was much easier because there were no requirements almost. But the challenge ahead is ambitious, and challenges are not easy, and we have to take them on. I mean, players here at the Godot tournament, if they had chose the fast track, the easy track, they would not be here playing this professional tournament. So we have to give it all. And also the City Council of Barcelona, when they implement these requirements with this vision and knowledge for the Marathon of Barcelona, they're doing so much more than just sustainability for Barcelona. Because I know the contractor here and I've worked with them, but they also organize races in countries in the third world, for instance, and it's more profitable for them, and they also assume it because they have environmental awareness to also apply more sustainable practices in races elsewhere. So you create this kind of butterfly effect from a large city such as Barcelona. And this wave effect is so important. Now, moving on to the next speaker, also key to the Barcelona Open, Banc Sabadell, because it's a key partner to walk long paths. You need a good company, and he's the Director of Sustainability of the Global Omnium Group, Mr. Juan Luis Pozo Calderón. I don't know if you are familiar with Global Omnium. It's one of the top 10 water operators in the world, and in Spain it is the first tourist operator, for instance, in the Valencia Oceanographic project, and he's been essential in the carbon footprint and water certification process there. So, Juan Luis, you've got the floor. Good morning. Well, after listening to the very interesting speeches by the previous speakers, I wanted to change my presentation and make it more friendly. I would like to talk about facts, not words. Make your actions reflect your words. I wanted to tell you about what this tennis club, Real Club de Tenis Barcelona, has done, and why were we impressed of this exercise that will become a world reference, because this is the first ATP tournament that starts this exercise, which means there's no going back, because we have set the starting point, the base to do things right. And when I'm saying doing things right, just a few days I was being interviewed on national TV, and they told me whether this was greenwashing and why we had this boom of sustainable events. And I was trying to explain there's two fundamental factors. First, social pressure, but more than anything, I don't know if you know from what Jose Maria said, but we have this European regulation on the table which tell us about green policies in Europe, and banks and sponsors that are going to make these kind of events possible in the future, they are forced to fund only sustainable events. And Real Club de Tenis Barcelona and the Open Banc Sabadell was already certified 2 editions ago before the pandemic a sustainable event. We've done it even more so this year because we have also implemented what the IPCC has set on a worldwide level, the reference that has to be followed by all organizations to not being just greenwashing, but measuring the actual carbon footprint. So the actual carbon footprint is not just that 70 centimeter layer Mr. José María was telling us about, but also the 360 impact following ISO rules and standards, which encompasses 6 categories now, and forces you to analyze the whole life cycle of the activity you are organizing. So those 360 degrees, that full measurement of the whole event, everything that's generated is done because I want to measure the negative impact so that I can compensate with a positive impact. We don't want to change the lifestyle after 20 centuries of evolution, but we want to actually measure and certify, as Lord Kelvin said in the 19th century when he invented ways to measure temperature. Temperature is now going up. We are complaining about it. When Lord Kelvin invented a way to measure temperature, he said what's not measured cannot be controlled or managed, and it deteriorates over time. This is why we invented this measurement model. So if we cannot measure and certify something, we can do anything about it. And I was a member of the Glasgow Summit of the UN, and the most important thing this year is that all countries reached an agreement, because we are seeing back and forth effect in these measurements, because we're starting to measure in the right way. It's not like we're not emitting gases. We are massively emitting, as Mr. José María said, but now we are also seeing this effect. We can't see the mitigation because we're starting to really measure now. And there was a statistic measurement in many countries, but when they started to make the actual good measurement, then we can see how things look like. So Barcelona Open Banc Sabadell, this tournament, has basically implemented a technology to correctly measure all of the chapters related to the following the ATP criteria, all of the chapters and influences related to the impact of organizing such a tournament, so that afterwards we can assess, as established by international standards, what are the criteria to reduce and mitigate the impact. And by the way, I was impressed by seeing that, well, this club has been working for many years seriously on reduction efforts. And for instance, they've done a lot of work in energy efficiency and sustainable mobility. Well, we have measured all of those impacts, and there is a very significant chapter, for instance, following these international standards. And by the way, this is not just a greenwashing exercise in which we apply the technology, we measure, and we get self-indulgent and we say this is the footprint of the tournament. No, we certified following the standard with an audit carried out by one of the most prestigious international organizations, such as AENOR. They have measured and certified these efforts. It's been a quite complex audit, a very professional audit, because they have checked each and every one of the items. There is a breakdown of almost 6,000 sources of emission that have been taken into account in this calculation. Of course, there is a technology, there is a tool that allows you to implement this exercise in a much more correct way. So, in other words, one of the things that are really important when you do this is to have the knowledge and the breakdown of the details of the data in this 3-6 level structure, and this provides you with improvement proposals for the future. There is Chapter 5, for instance, which is very important. This is the consumption of any product during the tournament. So you can measure what's the impact on the planet, on the environment from this tournament, and you can actually assess the importance in following editions of local economy, circular economy, proximity economy. You can precisely assess the footprint of a specific product from its manufacturing and logistics and transportation and everything. So that's the level to which we assess things, and this is why it is so important that this tournament has become an international reference as to not just doing greenwashing, but also setting a starting point to the commitment of the ATP to reduce by 2030 the emissions. You cannot reduce something you don't know about, something you have not measured. So Barcelona Open Banc Sabadell has correctly measured this footprint, has certified, as you will see, this impact. They have certified this footprint, and the commitment from now on is to move from just greenwashing, and this was discussed very much at the Glasgow summit, why you can hold an event and declare it sustainable right away, because there is a compensation action, and that's the last action you have to review. But we can't say this if we're generating an impact and emissions. You need a life cycle, and you need to make a commitment to the planet, you need to make a commitment to the society, so that for that life cycle, from now to the next edition of the tournament, you have to commit, you have to undertake, you're going to implement measures to compensate for that footprint. Sometimes people like to show off and say we're so good environmentally, and we've come up with this project buying emission rights in international markets. That's respectful, but it's not the path we should follow. The path we should follow is the one engaged in by Real Club de Tenis Barcelona. They have followed this serious exercise of measuring, certifying, making progress in reduction projects, because I know what I can improve on, and then I'm going to analyze all of the measures that could be correctly implemented in my immediate environment, which is the Les Corts district in this case. In this environment, what are the measures I can implement to compensate for the negative footprint on the environment from organizing this very significant event, this very important event? And finally, you might wonder what we do with this measurement. Well, these measurements have a number, 3,767 tons of CO2, and the event will finish on Sunday, and we've estimated all of the emissions, but then close down, we will check it when the lights are off at the end of the tournament. We will have made history, because we will have set the pillar to keep on moving forward and bringing together the values of sports and sustainability. Thank you very much.
Juan Luis, muchísimas gracias, porque esto...
Thank you very much. Because what you said is as important as demonstrate that you do what you say you want to do, and especially because the project of the Barcelona Open Banc Sabadell is not just to organize this meeting. This meeting was already organized before the pandemic. The aim is to continue with it. But what we want to do is just express it, because the process lasts the whole year, as Carlos explained earlier in relation to the marathon of Barcelona. This is a commitment that we need to measure, and there is no turning back. Once you're in it, you can only improve. There is no turning back, because you commit. That is the strength of these projects. And now we'll go towards another entity of this district, some guys who play football around the corner. I'll let you tell you about them, because you might not know them. So with us here today is Jordi Portabella. He is the Director of Sustainability of FC Barcelona, an entity that is very committed to this issue, and especially with the new project, the new Espai Barça. Thank you.
Doncs gràcies a
Well, thank you. Thank you for organizing these events. They are very important. There is a need for sports entities or any kind of organizations to be involved in the reduction of the carbon footprint and in disseminating about the importance of environmental aspects. We would also like to thank you for inviting us, because the area of sustainability of FC Barcelona has been recently created. It was created last year. And what we want to do is to build this area in a robust manner, enable us to incorporate all the future actions and initiatives in relation to sustainability. We have created this sustainability as one of the pillars of the club. As part of the strategic plan 2021-2026, this is one of the 3 most important pillars. And then this area was set up because we believe it fits nicely into the 3 themes of Barça. Barça is a local club. It's a local club, but also a global club. Barça, like many other entities, such as the Tennis Club of Barcelona, that would be an example, they have a notable impact on society. And lastly, because we are aware, for awareness purposes, because we want the club to be more than just a club, and to incorporate and evolve the criteria and the slogan of more than just a club in line with sustainability. Those local guys know about the origin and the importance given at Barça and in society when we say that Barça is more than just a club. And this importance is related to the club's origins and to the modification of the foundational bylaws. That is actually the same year in which this Royal Tennis Club of Barcelona was set up. The year when Joan Gamper, immediately after creating the club, modified the bylaws, focusing on the social impact of sport and the club in particular. This is the way we see it. Since Alejandro Brugland, as former Minister of Norway, was commissioned to conduct a study on how world societies can evolve in the common future for the UN, and she coined the term sustainable development. Many things have happened. Different things have been done at different points in time. But I believe that sustainability is what sustainable development was back in the day, incorporating a very important environmental aspect since Rio in 1992 that enables us to see through the COPs and how we've evolved. But we see this as the crossroads between social issues, economic issues, and environmental issues. In addition to these crossroads, we also see clearly how there is a need for there to be cooperation and cross-disciplinarity in all of those aspects that we want to develop within sustainability. These are our points of reference. You know, the Paris Agreement, the COP from Glasgow, the circular economy in the EU, and how we distribute the SDGs in our club. And we have also started to build the whole structure, analyzing the materiality. This will be ready this month or the beginning of next month. We will have a sustainability report that will incorporate the analysis of materiality and the sustainability, the strategic sustainability plan, which is part of the general discourse of the club. Dr. Valdesano, a master for many years of these generations with environmental interest, gave some data. Let me share some others from NASA, where we can clearly see that there is climate change occurring naturally, but nothing to do with what is going on now. Nothing to do. And NASA is credible. This points to the fact that these data are correct. So we have launched a series of sustainability measures that we are just embarking on. That is the carbon footprint, the ecological footprint. We will try to address that too. We are installing solar panels and also using other areas related to renewable energies. We are committed to the circular economy. We're especially aware of the Mediterranean climate and the future events that unfortunately will come in relation to water. We are worried about scarcity and vulnerability, and we're also concerned about biodiversity. We will be publishing a biodiversity guide soon, because we have a lot of biodiversity in the club, both in Les Corts and also in our sports village, and many other aspects too. This is what I referred to at the beginning, the Espai Barça. The Espai Barça will take 4 years to develop, but here you can see not just our intention, but what is being done and what is being built right now. We believe that the cover of the stadium should be a large solar panel structure, but not all of it. So we're also building 3 deposits to collect rainfall, to reuse it. We're also working with the Waste Management Council for the geothermal use of renewable energies. And I could also speak about aspects that are related to this, such as how we will accumulate this energy, how we will synthesize and recover all of this waste, and many other things. I mentioned at the beginning that Barça has a global impact, and we've borne that in mind. When we considered the sustainability elements that we want to apply in the construction of the new stadium, a larger stadium, and therefore with a tendency to have a larger consumption, although we will be reducing the consumption per visitor, per member, per person who will be enjoying our facilities, you can see that Barça right now is the club in the world, in the football world, with the greatest impact. Despite the pandemic, though, there's been a reduction, as has been the case with other clubs. And we can also see how football, or soccer, is the so-called predominant sport worldwide. It varies, of course, depending on the continent, but we can see if a club, a local and global club, considers to make a strong, robust, intense intervention towards sustainability, it will be capable of serving as an example. And this is an element that Barça wants to take advantage of, to relate it with what I said so at the beginning. We believe that we are more than just a club, and we believe we can lead football clubs and sports events that can be carried out. I love to see how the place where we are is moving ahead of us. We can see that you already have a carbon footprint. We are getting ready for it, and we are finding it really difficult, but we're going to learn from your example. We're finding it difficult because we have 5 professional teams of 4 different sports. And then we have 15 other amateur sports sections. There's a great deal of work to structure things well, because from men's and women's football to handball, going through basketball, roller hockey, five-a-side football, athletics, and with many athletics and athletes, with people that are relevant worldwide. They even win the Olympics. And we must bear all of these things in mind. And this means that our work is significant. We want to lead it, though, in the world of sport. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us.
Wow, quin gran exemple de...
What a great example of play for the planet, right? This is, the Barca brand is a brand recognized the world over. It's related to the world of sport and probably one of the most global ones. Everybody is involved. Thank you. Now, we'll go to the next speaker. He will be talking about sustainable mobility in the tournament. I was excited to talk about this. I wanted someone to talk about this. This is key because I'm really crazy about sustainable mobility to the extent that in 2012 I started to say that electric cars, electric cars, electric cars. Remember, when climbing Mount Everest, I decided I wouldn't do things, so I stopped going to the Dakar, and I had already done 9 Dakars. I said I would only go back to the Dakar if I do so with the Sustainable Mobility Project and with a car that generates 0 emissions. Finally, in 2015, I was the first driver, the first pilot in history to take part in the hardest race in the world, in the Dakar, with the car consuming 0 fossil fuels. I didn't finish the race, but the team did 3 years later, after 3 attempts. I was the first, but I didn't do it very well in the race. But I'm very proud of it, though. Actually, I'd say it's the thing, the failure I am the proudest of. I believe that all athletes are really committed to this. Maria Torrecilla, product manager and responsible for product of the Cupra Born, will be addressing to us. Maria, the floor is yours. Thank you, Albert. Thank you for your presentation. Today, I will present Cupra to you, a brand for vehicle lovers and for drivers within the era of electrification, a very young brand, born in 2018, which is part of the Volkswagen Group, a brand which is also part of the SEAT SA Group. As you will see throughout my presentation, our vehicles also convey these values, this concern for sustainability and the environment. Every minute, 1 million of plastic bottles are sold worldwide. This means that throughout the year, 12 million tons of plastic end up at the bottom of oceans, rivers, seas, and beaches. Because of this, the reason of my presentation is to explain to you what we do with these maritime waste, with this plastic that end up at the bottom of the oceans, and how we at Cupra transform these bottles and plastic that we find into part of the seats of one of our most special vehicles, the Cupra Born, our first 100% electric vehicle that we have the pleasure to present to you here today at the Barcelona Open Banc Sabadell. In line with this strong commitment from Cupra to sustainability and the environment, we have joined the initiative Sequal, an initiative that was born very close to here, in Anglès, a village in the province of Girona, the aim of which is to gather maritime plastic and transform it by giving it a new life. Thanks to the cooperation of fishermen from different NGOs and different local entities, we collect plastic from the sea and waste of all kinds. The part that corresponds to plastics is later classified and then transformed into Sequal yarn, a fiber of recycled polymer. With this polymer fiber, we can then create a thread, a yarn. It's called Sequal yarn. and then it is used to yearn parts of the seats in the Cupra Born. But the Cupra Born is not a sustainable vehicle because it uses these seats. And by the way, its feeling is emotional, sport feel. In addition, with this initiative, we contribute with an initiative based on the circular economy, because we also preserve the environment and also preserve maritime resources from rivers, beaches, and the sea. The Cupra Born is not a sustainable vehicle because it's electric or because it uses these recycled seats or recycled components. It is also the first Cupra model that responds to a neutral CO2 concept. What does this mean? This means that the energy resulting from renewable energies is the one used throughout the supply chain, in the logistics chain, and also for the manufacturing of the vehicle itself, as well as with the high-voltage battery. Accordingly, we're able to make sure that the carbon footprint is zero. Emissions corresponding to inevitable aspects are later compensated by means of different certified programs, by the highest of standards. By strengthening our commitment towards sustainability, the environment, electrification, and today to sport, high-performance sport, we've joined to Cupra for the second year running in the Barcelona Open Sabadell, Comte de Godó. This tournament has become a reference amongst the ATP tournament circuit, turning it into a reference in terms of sustainability. And I don't know whether you'll recall, if you were here last year, we were presenting our hybrid range with the Cupra Formentor and the Cupra León. This year, we are presenting the Cupra Born, our first 100% electric vehicle that will be used by organizational players to cover logistics needs. So, by doing so, we're able to make sure that the direct emissions of this vehicle to cover these needs are 0 grams. In total, 16 units of this model are being used. 16 units of the Cupra Born will be out in the streets of Barcelona. They're great, you know, with the logo of the tournament and Cupra. And we will see them in the streets of Barcelona. And by the way, the neighborhood, El Born, is giving name to this model. Let's have a look at the video. As you can see, the Cupra Born presents a very distinctive, striking, emotional, and also sports feel in line with electrification values. It presents very fluid lines in its design, aerodynamic, and technical details. Most importantly, the Cupra Born is a vehicle designed specifically to be a 100% electric vehicle. It is built on the MB platform of the Volkswagen Group, and this means that all the components of this vehicle have been designed specifically for being built on an electric model. This affords it great dynamics, great driving dynamics, and optimized dynamics, as well as good range management, allowing it to reach 540 kilometers of autonomy or driving range. But not because of being an electric car is boring to drive, because it offers first-rate performance with 0 to 100 kilometers in 6 seconds and 0 to 50 in 2.6 seconds. This demonstrates that an electric vehicle does not need to be boring when driving, but on the contrary, the Cupra Born is a vehicle that also conveys a sports feel, dynamism, and emotions at the wheel. In addition, the Cupra Born is a vehicle designed to be part of the digital ecosystem, a connected vehicle to the internet, connected to the cloud. It has the Cupra Connect system, with which You can connect to the car with a mobile phone, charging the battery of the car, and making sure that when you leave the home, your vehicle is ready to go. It also has the technology Card Next. This is a protocol of communication that allows the car to be connected to infrastructure or other vehicles, whereby in the event of a car being broken down on the side of a road, on the shoulder, or a stretch of road in works, the vehicle will inform the driver to react in time to avoid a possible accident. Because of this technology, because of the whole sustainability involved, because of the electrification technology of the Cupra Born, this car embraces electrification and leads the electrical transformation. A transformation embraced also by the Cupra Formentor and the Cupra Leon in its hybrid, switchable models. And in 2021, these new versions will saw global sales of 40% of this brand. Let us not forget of the Cupra Teca, our first model launched in 2018. But Cupra will continue to grow, thanks to models such as the Cupra Tabascan, an SUV that is fully electrified that will come in 2024, and the small BEV, a small urban vehicle, more compact, based on the concept of urban rebel. And that is all. Just let me say that only 4 years ago we embarked on this adventure at Cupra. This brand was born to conquer the lovers of cars and drivers within the era of electrification, offering stimulating design, a sport feel, good performance, but also a vehicle that conveys emotions and that is especially committed to the environment. A vehicle that demonstrates sustainability, that demonstrates that high performance and electrification does not need to be boring. So thank you very much for inviting us and be present in this event, and thank you for your attendance.
Gracias, María.
Thank you, Maria. What a car, right? Just give me one with good performance, and I may take it to the next Dakar because I really love it. Thank you. Now let's move on to the next speaker, and we'll coming to an end now. Well, companies are the true agents of change that we need. At the end of the day, companies are the ones that do the most. As small, medium, and large companies, we need their commitment to change everything that needs to be changed. The next speaker is very important for him to be here today. Actually, its presentation will explain to us the sustainability strategy, but they will present the new manifest. They say something has to change. We're talking about Danone. Here with us is the sustainability manager working at the Secretary General Department. And there's one comment I would like to make before I introduce him to you. Danone is the first mass consumption company that has received B Corp certification. Many of you might not be aware of that. In the US, it's essential. A company with a future needs B Corp certification, but it's really difficult to obtain it because it requires the highest of standards in sustainability. Not only ISO, INOR, it complements them. It's more holistic with the philosophy, behavior, trends. It's very complicated to secure this certification. They're very demanding. Even headhunters have certified that there are many professionals of the highest talent that cannot be signed for companies unless the company does not have a B Corp certificate. They don't want to work for them, and they know they have talent and they will get a lot of money. But they want to earn that money in a place where they can generate an important impact. And Danone is the first mass consumption company receiving this certification. So now I give you Alejandro Frias, the manager of sustainability.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por permitirme estar aquí con vosotros.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. I wanted to tell you about our sustainability strategy. Something has to change and how we integrate it throughout our business. I have so much to tell you and so little time, so sorry beforehand if I'm too quick. But anyways, we can start with the presentation. At Danone, we've been trying to feed as many people as possible for 100 years, but during this time, we have not just supplied food, but also health through this food. And we have wanted to do this in the most sustainable way, the most possible sustainable way, being environmental friendly and respecting society as a whole. So we have tried to transform our portfolio over the years, and now we have 100% of healthy products in our portfolio. This portfolio is split up in 3 main businesses, basically all dairy, including plant-based. This is the majority business in Danone, then the water business with Bombella, sponsor of this event, and Lanjarón, and then food specialized in medical nutrition. So the efforts over the last few years have rewarded us with this certification. Alberto told us about this B Corp certification, which requires us to meet high standards in matters of environmental and social performance, as well as legal transparency and responsibility. And we are proud to say that we are a B Corp company, the first one for mass consumption in Spain that has certified our dairy, plant-based, and water business in Spain. So I would like to stress these reflections. Every time we drink and eat, we vote for the world we would like to live in, and we try to supply health to as many people as possible through our food products. So this is why we have this sustainability strategy, which is based on 3 main axes. This is connected to all the value chain and to all of our stakeholders, and I will dive into these. First, we have the next generation farm axis. This is an innovative project. It is a farming educational platform to empower the rural areas. We've done it from Danone together with Elfemas, Almanatura, the Polytechnical University of Valencia, and also B Corp. The second axis is our CO2 mission. This is our commitment. We want to reduce our CO2 emissions 50% by 2030. We want to be carbon neutral by 2050, in line with the goals of the Paris Summit.
Sí. Así como los objetivos del Science by Target, ¿no?
And last but also importantly, we have this Feeding the Change axis. This is a movement with which we want to change the way in which we feed people today. We want to supply health in an accessible way for as many people as possible. We are working together with nutritionists, professors, food influencers to try and get closer to the consumers and to try to regain the trust we had lost because of what had been said about us. And we want to do this supplying this healthy and sustainable consumption of food. A couple more things. We recently published the Kid Pledge for the empowerment of kids so that they have a healthy and balanced diet with as little sugar as possible, and we've been the first mass consumption, the mass first product that has put in line this Kids Pledge portfolio with the goals of the World Food Organization, so that there's less 1 gram of sugar for each 100 grams of food or product. So based on this sustainability strategy at Danone, we try to preserve the health of the planet, and we do that working around 4 main natural pillars. First, the climate pillar. At Danone, we are aware that the food industry accounts for over 25% of the global emissions, with around 60 gigatons as a whole in the planet, and this is why we want to make a contribution. We want to try and decarbonize our business model. In order to do that, we make efforts to try and measure the carbon footprint of our businesses, and we try to map and analyze the different stages of our value chain to try and find reduction levers to reduce the CO2 levels. We bear in mind that plant-based and flexitarianism will make a very significant contribution to this emission reduction. The second axis, farming. Not only we take care of our farmers, our cattle farmers, by ensuring the generational relay of at least 50% of them with contracts for at least 15 years, but also we try to reduce the environmental impact of farming, of cattle farming, by including, for instance, certified soy in all of our farms. We try to work with local farms, not farms more than 100 kilometers away from the factory where the raw matter is processed, and we also try to work with regenerative farming. We want to reduce our impact with that. In terms of circular economy, how do we work? Well, again, in 3 different ways. We reduce or we improve the circularity of our packaging, making it more recyclable, changing the material from less recyclable plastic polymers to more recyclable ones. We also try to eliminate food waste. We don't have expiry dates, but preferred consumption dates now for 90% of our products. And in the case of water, we also measure the water footprint in all of our operations. We try to use this resource as efficiently as possible and to prevent waste. And we do this also through our water lines, that would be Fombella and Lanjarón. And also, since we sponsor this event through Fombella, I wanted to dive into the actions that we implement in terms of sustainability in our water brands, Fombella and Lanjarón. These actions revolved around 3 main pillars. The first one, the source of water. As such, our water comes from 3 different aquifers, the one in Sigüenza, San Hilari, and Lanjarón, and we try to preserve and protect the natural environment around those sources. Also in the factories, we try to streamline and improve the processes so that we minimize the impact and make them more sustainable. The third pillar on which we work for sustainability for water brands is the packaging pillar, the plastic. We try to ensure the circularity of all our packaging, all of the bottles that are wasted in the ocean. We try to recover these bottles through this innovative project, which is called Renew. This is a circular economy project with a social impact that allows us to retrieve these bottles and put them into a closed system so that we can produce new bottles from them. Also, it has a social impact. It comes with a social impact because it allows us to train through this training process, to train people and to empower unfavored groups and groups at risk of social exclusion. Also, in terms of plastic, what do? We try to have as much recycled plastic as possible in our portfolio. In Lanjarón, for instance, recently we achieved 100% of our portfolio with recycled PET, recycled plastic, and in Fombella we are also coming up with a road map, with a plan to have the same thing by 2025. In Lanjarón, we recently launched the naked bottle with no label, with no sticker on it, and we've saved, we've spared like 25,000 tons of plastic every year, which accounts for 7,000 tons of CO2 emitted. And last, we have the operation pillars. We try to reduce CO2 in all of our operations and factories through energy efficiency processes optimization of functions and machines. In this case, we can credit that 100% of the power we use comes from green sources through the origin guarantee of Iberdrola. And also, we have the Lean and Green certificate, which means we have reduced 20% of our CO2 emissions in our logistic chains in the last 5 years. Also, in Lanjaron, we have achieved the first neutral carbon bottle in which all of the CO2 emissions are compensated for. And in the e-commerce from Bella en Casa, we also got this carbon neutrality by making up for the 28 tons of CO2 that are generated by this service. And also we have this iconic project within water brands, this Renueva project, this Renew project. And I just wanted to show you what are the outcomes and the impact of the last few years. Through this project, we have accomplished something which is recovering on average 60 tons of PET, the plastic the bottles are made of, and we've re-injected it into the system to make new bottles. And socially speaking, we have created up to 50 new jobs with people in situations of social exclusion and vulnerable people, and we have trained over 85 people in the several editions of the training programs we've organized, 5 of them. And I would just leave you with this, with the QR code, so that you can check our manifest, where we discuss how we're going to face challenges as a society in the next few years, as well as the path we've covered over the last few years in terms of sustainability. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Alejandro, and you're excused because, these big companies are these big ships with this huge energy, and it's so difficult to change the momentum, and it's difficult to really change in big and large organizations, but we need to engage in these new momentums in our development. That's what we need. Moving on to the next speaker, last speaker of the day, also someone from the club. I have not played against him. He's not my opponent because he's like in a different league. He's like 6 leagues above, 6 levels above. He's been a member of the Sustainability Commission from the beginning of the Barcelona Royal Tennis Club, and he will give us a presentation because he's the president and co-founder of Eco-Intelligent Growth. Eco-Intelligent Growth.
One of the world's most experts in cradle-to-cradle and circular economy. And, well, he will close a little bit these speeches. According to our other partner in the Sustainability Commission, José María Baldassano, he talked about why. And he, Ignasi Cubiñá, will talk us about how. ¿Cómo lo hacemos? Gracias, Ignasi. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I'm going to be rushing a little bit. Buen día, buenos días a todo el mundo. I speak in English for the rest of the audience. I'm a biologist by education as well. So I've been in this business of, it's not really a business, in this idea of a circular economy and cradle to cradle since 2005. So it's already 17 years now. Yeah. So I will do like Steve Jobs in Stanford. I will tell 3 stories, very short. So the first story is carbon is not the enemy. There's a big misunderstanding about that. So we don't have a carbon problem, we have an emission problem, and we have a design problem. So carbon is life. So without carbon, we are nothing. So don't take it, as a lot of, the language is being articulated right now. So we need carbon, but we need carbon in the right place at the right time. That's the main problem with carbon. And we need carbon, we need to handle carbon as matter, so as material, and we need to handle carbon as fuel. And here's the problem. We need carbon for building structures, we need carbon to produce abundance, we need carbon to get out of poverty, we need carbon to build economy, we need carbon to build communities, and we need carbon to decouple our system for the depletion of non-renewable resources. And back to the first ATP speech, when they were talking about the resources and climate change, because both things are extremely interconnected. What we don't want are the carbon emissions related to the use of fossil fuels. And by the way, we need two types of energies. We need energies that they are renewable. We also need energy which is clean. And we also need energies that they can combine each other. And we need energies for the transition period. So first thing, carbon is not the enemy. Keep it in mind. My second story, and I said I want to talk about the how. There's only, in our opinion, there's only one how. We need to change the system. This is a systemic change, and needs to be systematic change. So by changing the system, I mean we need to move from a linear economy into a circular economy. It has been stated several times today. By the way, there is a clear definition about circular economy. Circular economy is an economy which is regenerative by intention and design, and has to be inclusive and has to be distributive. So equity, economy, ecology. So the way to get there and to move from a linear economy into circular economy today is not more than 9% worldwide basis. So we are far away. A lot of people is talking about circular economy, but very few people is really implementing circular economy at the whole range of possibilities and opportunities that circular economy is offering. So a critical thing about circular economy is how you manage to design products and systems that they really keep the value of resources as long as possible. And that's key for people, and that's key for the economy, because everything is about stocks and flows. So we don't need to stock carbon emissions in the atmosphere. We need to stock carbon in the soil, because carbon in the soil is productive. Carbon in the atmosphere is a burden. So if you have to deal with stock and flow, you need to deal with how you design products and how you design the systems that are supporting products. So there's no circular economy without the right energy. And there's no circular economy without the people. Because in the end of the day, a circular economy is about relationships. It's relationships between people, it's relationships between matter, it's relationship with energy. And this is my third story. My third story is how to make it happen. And I think for the first time, I'm going to be shorter than expected. So good for you, Albert. So my third story is, okay, well, that looks very high level, you know, it looks very theoretical, but how you make it happen? How can we move from a linear economy into a circular economy? So then I just brought a very, I think it's a very nice example, because it's not a perfect stuff yet. Nobody's perfect in circularity yet, but we need to start somewhere. That's what we are doing here at the tennis club, and this is what we are doing in our company and with a lot of the clients we're working with. Don't be afraid of not being perfect. Nobody's perfect. We need to move forward, and we need to make the right steps. The worst thing we can do is to do 2 steps forward and 3 backwards. So let's do 1.5 steps forward, and it's much more effective in a timely manner, you know? So just to show you an example, and it's funny enough because that's the nice things about YouTube, right? I mean, I didn't know that the whole story of polyamides and different strings being used in the tennis ball. I remember when I was 15 years old, I used to play with gut, it's animal fiber, from beef. I was not a very good player, but I was broken gut like hell. So it was extremely expensive. And my father once told to me, hey, it's over. Either you find a replacement, which is much cheaper, or you don't play tennis anymore. You are too expensive to me, you know? I said, okay, let's play nylon. Let's play polyamide, you know? And then there was this move from gut to nylon. By the way, still some of the top players, they still play with gut a little bit. And most of the times combined with nylon, but not with nylon, with polyester. But then when we're talking about a sustainability commission here, by the way, sustainability is the goal, circularity is the how. We're talking about practical things, very specific things. And I said, okay, what happens with string? It's one of the main waste and leftovers when you play tennis. Because the use cycle of the string is the only one is shorter than a string are balls. The rest is a longer use cycle. So we need to focus on those things that need to be replaced in a more often, because there is where the major impact is being made. So the other thing about circularity is that we need to create jobs, and we need new jobs, and we need new people thinking about different things. So this is a great opportunity for that. This is a startup company. It's a very small company. They just said, okay, we want to start using strings as secondary raw material to produce fabrics and textiles. And this is what this product is all about. So when people talk about climate change protection, clean air, all kind of very high-level dynamics, which are extremely complex, and you need a lot of stakeholders playing in the same direction, right? But when we play for the planet, when we talk about this kind of event, we need to do some very practical and pragmatical things as well, you know? Because these are the kind of examples that the kids and the children and all the people they aspire to become big athletes, they can learn from. This is just discovering the obvious. And this is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ignasi. Bueno, a part de ser un gran expert.
In addition to being a great expert in the circular economy, and he's also a great communicator. And this is a very important message. Let's not wait to start to be perfect. In the end, it's best not to reach 10, but to make it a step every time. And not everybody's perfect, but we need to make progress, and we need to help those who are fearful to what they will say so they can move forward. So we need to be the apostles of sustainability. This is our mission. So let us now conclude with the event. I kindly ask the president of the Real Club de Tenis Barcelona 1899, Jordi Lacambra. Thank you so much for organizing this. Hi, good morning. Thank you all. I would like to thank you all for making this possible. Thank you to all the institutions and the companies involved. We, Tenis de Barcelona, agree with all the topics that have been mentioned here today. That's why we have a commission dedicated specifically to issues like this. And as Ignasi just said, we do it step by step, cooperating with the recycling of string and balls. And if we can recycle balls and strings, we will do so. Tennis Barcelona, inside, led by our Pablo Acevedo, responsible for this area within our staff. We do whatever possible to cooperate and make sure that the planet, as has been said today, is a reality. That is a place where we can do things to be a healthy planet, a more sustainable planet. And outdoors, we will do as much as possible to organize events like this, so we can act as another voice, humbly cooperating towards this goal. Thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoy a great day of tennis, and let us hope to continue in the same line. Next year we will do something similar or better. We try to improve things year after year, and let's take it one step at a time without changing the final goal. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Un moment abans...
Just 1 second before the final round of applause, I would kindly ask Mr. La Cámara to stay, because Mr. José Luis del Pozo of Global Omnium, for the very first time, will hand over the ISO certificates. They did so with AENOR for the carbon footprint and for sustainable event and development, with all the indicators and measurements made in 2019. We cannot measure what you will do, you measure what you have done. And it is the very first time, maybe Roland Garros is at the same level, but there are no other who have received this certification of sustainable event. And the certification for the carbon footprint is very important, and we have it now. So now with the representative of AENOR, thank you, José Luis. I think this is an important photograph. And I would kindly ask for all speakers to join us on stage to take a group photograph. And now, please, the other speakers who took part in the event, please join us on stage.
Exacto. Nos ponemos así. Exacto. A ver, sí. Ay, perdón. Venga, un momento. Aquí estamos. Ya salimos todos en la foto. O algunos nos podemos poner ahí en plan rugby, ¿no? María, va. Nos vemos aquí, va. Un momento aquí. Exacto, va. Vertical, María. Vertical. Bueno. Pues gracias a todos. De verdad, gracias por venir. Gracias a los que están conectados.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for those of you online. Next year, we'll see each other again after a lot of work we'll be doing during this year. Thank you very much.